to Sticking to the Truth with Juleen Jackson and Debbie Jansen. Today's show makes me crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. Juleen, are you ready for this crazy day?
I think I'm ready. I can't wait.
That's great. Well, let's start with you. You know the law. Why do some people protest? Why do Americans put up with it? And can protesters go too far?
Well, look, just think, why do you put up a fuss and a stink sometimes? Because you think something's unfair, right? Something is unjust. You want to push back a little bit. And guess what, Deb? We have a constitution that says you do. You have a right to peaceably assemble when you think something is wrong. In fact, that's known as the first freedoms in our Constitution. The very first amendment in the Bill of Rights that our founding fathers gave us guarantees 5 freedoms: the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech and press, the freedom to assemble peaceably, and also to petition the government when you think that there has been a wrong. It's called seeking redress for your grievances. And so constitutionally, we have that protection. Now, you know, I've been a part of protests. Does that shock you? Are you clutching your bosom as I say that? I've been a part of protests that have been very peaceable. Mostly that's the kind of protests I've been a part of. But I've also been a part of some protests that went too far: breaking, entering, destruction, violence. And that's illegal, right? And that should be stopped and punished by some sort of legal means. But I do think it's good to know that we have a constitutional right to be able to seek redress when we think something is wrong, if we do it in a peaceable manner. And that's right where the rubber meets the road, right? What is considered peaceable, you know?
Exactly. And that's kind of where we're going today because of all the Elon Musk and different protests throughout the country, that it feels like it's gone too far because there's a destruction of property. And I know we dealt with that a few years ago as well, when these big protests came up and they were burning down office buildings and doing all the things that they did, taking over streets. So I'm glad to know, and I want to encourage all our listeners, we still have a constitution that says, hey, you can go out there and do this. But is anybody changing their mind when there's violence? I don't think anyone's opinion is going to change because some moronic college student yells an obscenity. What does that college student think? Do they think I'm going to start crying and say, oh no, they cussed at me and they threw some paint at me and I have to change my mind because surely with all that's going on, they must be right? Is that what protesters really think is going to happen? And then I wonder, what kind of fool do they think I am? That is not going to change my mind on anything. Instead, I'm not going to think they are smart. What I'm going to think is that they are childish and having a temper tantrum. In fact, I now believe that about some people in Congress. Oh my. They are acting so childish. They don't provide any substance or research or analysis of the real situation. They don't consider any facts, and some of them can't even have a non-emotional discussion with someone who disagrees. All they want to do is spew hate and cuss, and that's not being smart. I think it was Bill Mayer, how do you say his name? That said he wasn't going to play their game. He said most Democrats act like mean girl groups. Oh, I had to look that one up. But a mean girl would say, oh no, we can't sit at the table with her. She doesn't think like us. As if having a difference of opinion brings on some kind of horrible disease. Ugh. I've taught all kinds of teen and young adult classes, and when we talk about relationships, I always bring up how to deal with differences. And one of the things I'm adamant about is you can't be emotional and you can't be jealous. And I just don't get jealousy. Why would anyone want to waste their time being jealous? And I know a lot of people do, and a lot of my friends do, but being jealous just causes a lot of arguments and hate. So when I was dating, if someone wanted to date a person I liked and the person I liked was interested, I didn't care. I said, sure, go date him. I don't care. Because if that person stopped liking me, there was nothing I could do about it. And it was better for me just to walk away. But if the guy really liked me, then I'd look at that girl and say, well, good luck trying to steal him because I've got him. I just think jealousy is an emotional, ignorant way to approach a problem. And I like to use the example when I'm teaching classes about how stupid it is by saying, let's suppose you're married. You come home one day and you find your spouse in bed with another person. So you quickly run to the closet, grab the gun, shoot the other person, then you shoot your spouse. I don't understand that because do you really expect that to solve the problem? Did you think that your spouse was going to jump up, clutch his heart, and say, oh, thank you. I'm so glad you shot me. Now I know for sure that you love me. Juleen, that's just crazy to me. And that's as crazy as all this violent and angry protesting. If it doesn't work, why do it? The greatest protesting movement in our country was started by Martin Luther King. He believed that being both morally and practically committed to nonviolence was the only way to change minds. King believed that the Christian doctrine of love, operating through the Gandhi method of nonviolence, was one of the most potent weapons available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom. I've said a lot here, but Juleen, what do you think?
Deb, I'm still laughing about some of the examples that you gave us. I mean, you could have had a career on the stage or as a comedian or something. I mean,
I don't know about that.
I was great. You had me. Hey, I really like this aspect of Martin Luther King. Look, I don't love everything about Martin Luther King, but that's a podcast for another day. But this non-violent doctrine takes real maturity, like spiritual maturity, emotional, intellectual, mental maturity, not to be drawn into emotions of a situation because your emotions get you in trouble, don't they, Deb?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because how we feel today about something or someone might not be how we feel about them in a year from now, right? And we have regrets when we base decisions or actions on our feelings, right? So I do think that the enemies of America, the enemies of freedom, want you to kind of be in this emotional sphere because that's how they can control you, right? So if they can get you to focus on your fear and to take counsel from fear, then it turns into, anger, and then anger turns to hate, and hate turns to violence. You're doing things that you're going to regret at some point. And I think that's what we have seen recently with all these protests on college campuses. We're thinking of the one in Columbia. Most immediately, with the students protesting the Israeli war and Palestinian sympathizers, and it turned into an anti-Semitic eruption, on the campus. And now President Trump is withholding funds from that school, and they're using lawfare. They're going to sue him for that. And so it's just a mess. I think the nature of protesters today might be filling a void that young people especially have, but it's not particularly moving the needle in a positive way. I mean, Deb, when I was a young kid, I remember on a Friday night as a teenager, if we didn't have anything going on, we'd go downtown to this little corner in front of a federal building because there was always a protest on Friday night. And there's always like some sort of someone brought their parents barbecue, and there'd be a little fire and songs, and it was kind of exciting. And then after an hour or so, we'd get bored, we'd go get a burger and go on home and call it a night, right? But what we're seeing with young people today is I think they're having an identity crisis. When your identity is not rooted in truth, like as sons and daughters of a loving God, you kind of seek to fit in and to belong, and get your approval from elsewhere, right? You're seeking acceptance. And so I think that's why you see gangs or causes or even the LGBTQ community that's feeling a need for young kids that are feeling like they're a little lost and on the fringe, and they want a group to associate with. And no, I don't think protesting in the long run is going to fill that void for them.
I agree 100%. And I agree because I see this a lot. I was talking with a gentleman, it's probably been a couple of months ago, and he stood on his front porch and bawled like a baby. And he said, I just want to do something big. I want to be part of something big. And I think that's where God comes in. He's put this longing in our heart to do something bigger and better, to help our world, to be important to our world around us. And it's a longing that you have to fill. It doesn't go away. And so a lot of people are reaching out for things because they're trying to fill that void. But if you're reaching for something that's bad, all that's going to happen to you, or if you get in the angry mode and the hating mode, all that's going to happen to you is that hate just will breed more hate and more anger and more hate and more anger. And you're not really solving the problem. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, we know people like that are always churning, and they're not happy people. They're miserable people.
Yeah, and that's so sad. Well, I tell you what, let's take it in a little bit different direction. I mean, we're still on the same topic, but Martin Luther King Jr. Had 6 principles of nonviolence that he asked people to sign on for when they joined him in a protest. And no matter what his life was really like or what he was doing, these 6 principles are wonderful. And I believe they would help any protester go in a totally different direction that would help them maybe convince people of what they're trying to protest against. So principle 1, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. Wow. That right there, that sentence is amazing. It is active, nonviolent resistance to evil. That takes us in a whole different direction, doesn't it? It is aggressive spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I got to read that one again. It is being aggressive spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, not violent or disrespectful. How about that, Juleen?
I like it. Aggressive, but not violent or disrespectful. So I think to me, that means we don't need to be shrinking violets. We can let our voices be heard. We can let our ideas be known. We can stand for truth. I like it.
I do too. Let's see what principle 2 is. Nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. Nonviolence brings you together. It doesn't push you apart. The result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation. The purpose of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. How about that?
Oh, that gets me excited. I mean, we're starting to make progress when we understand that the goal is to win people's hearts. And you do that through serving them, through walking a mile in their shoes, and then you begin to understand them. And then you begin to find common ground as you gather. I mean, this is such a beautiful, mature, but even Christ-like approach to building community within a diverse world, right? God, all I have to do is walk outside and we're all shapes, sizes, colors. I mean, God loves diversity. He didn't want us to use it against each other. He wanted it to work for each other, and so I love that point.
I love it too. I especially love the two words or more, creation of the beloved community. That's a purpose I can get involved in.
Yeah.
Principle 3, nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Nonviolence recognizes that evildoers are also victims and are not evil people. The nonviolent resistor seeks to defeat evil, not people. So why are these people not on board with, and I'm talking about today's protesters, not on board with defeating the evil of waste and fraud in our government? I think it's because they are fighting people. They are not fighting evil. What do you think, Juleen?
Well, I think that people are a product of how they've been taught, what mama and daddy taught them, what grandma and grandpa, the neighborhoods they grew up in, the schools they went to, what their hobbies are, that kind of thing. So, I think some people really were taught that the government should fill in the gaps and provide equal things for equal people. Maybe some people were taught, no, they should provide equal protection of rights, but then it's up to you to, take what opportunities you have and go for it. I think some people maybe believe it's the role of government to take care of us, right? To determine what our freedoms or our rights are. And some people might be taught, no, it's God that determines our freedom, and it's Him who delivers us when we have problems. So I think sometimes when actions are based on incorrect beliefs, chaos ensues, right? And I was just talking about this with my husband last night. He said young people just don't know the early history of America, the principles of freedom and liberty and the inalienable rights. There's my doggy. The inalienable rights that this nation was founded on. I mean, if they did, they would know that what the current administration is trying to do by shrinking the government and limiting, its responsibilities and sending it back to the states. They would know that's completely in keeping with the principles that our founders established this land on. Instead, all they've known is, a big kind of bloated bureaucracy of a government that, tells us how high to jump and what is safe and what's not. And so this idea of cutting away at that makes them nervous and scared. And so I think they are in the right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And I want to thank you at this point for all the classes you and Al teach us, because it brings about a calmness and a confidence to know the truth about government, our Constitution, how it works. It helps me calm down when I'm faced with something that's scary. Because I know, no, wait a minute, this has got to go through the courts this way because, and this has got to do it this way because, and it makes me a calmer person because I'm educated. So thank you, and Al, for teaching the classes that you do. And everybody, you can find them on Moms for America. They're for free, and they're called The Healing of America and Cottage Meetings and Naked Men. There is just so much that you guys teach that is so wonderful. So check it out and learn these things, because that will help. And you're exactly right. It's because kids don't know those now. They're not taught in school. Well, we're in the middle of changing that, hopefully. Okay, Principle 4. Nonviolence holds that suffering personally can educate and transform. And you and I were talking before the program about how Jesus and his nonviolence when he was being persecuted and when he was crucified did educate and transform a lot of people. Nonviolence accepts suffering without retaliation. Ooh, that's hard. That's really hard. Unearned suffering is redemptive and has tremendous educational and transforming possibilities. What do you say to that one, Juleen?
Well, I love this word suffering because because of what you can become from your sufferings, right? I mean, I know some people that let their sufferings define them. They're like this victim, this suffering, this injustice, this wrong happened to me. And they have this perpetual victim mentality. They can't get beyond the injustices in their life, or maybe even in history. That's something that happened 200 years ago. And they just are constantly playing the blame game. They want retribution. They want special privileges because of their sufferings or someone else's sufferings. And they're miserable people, like we talked about. And then there's other people that let their sufferings, their failures, or, wrong things that have happened in their life, maybe their own fault or no fault of their own, but they let their sufferings be their teachers, right? We've said this, let your greatest pain, that which causes you your greatest pain, will be your greatest teacher, your best teacher, if you will allow it. It's the whole concept that I know both you and I taught our children. Look, are we going to make it help us become better because of it? Or are we going to become bitter, the better versus bitter, argument?
I totally agree with you. It is hard to learn those lessons. In fact, sometimes when I'm suffering and somebody says, Debbie, what's wrong with you today? I'll say, well, I'm preparing for my final exam on this test I've been given. And I want to pass it because I don't want to take the class again. So suffering, if you take it right and you use it to grow, it helps your life and it changes your life. And it's not pleasant. It's not easy. We know that, but it does work, right? Yeah. So principle 5, nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. There used to be a song in the 70s. What was it? What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Love, sweet love. It's the only thing. There's
just too little love. We didn't know we were going to do a concert today. Oh, yes. Okay. So nonviolence. I love doing this with you, Juleen. Nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence resists violence of the spirit as well as the body. I'm just loving the way they've put this together. Mm-hmm. Nonviolent love is spontaneous, unmotivated, unselfish, and creative. Oh my goodness, Juleen, I have had people that have done that for me. And their love is spontaneous, unmotivated, unselfish, and creative. And it is powerful. Mm-hmm. How about you?
I mean, it's almost feeling like a Sunday school lesson right now. We've got the choirs, we've got the spirit, we've got the word. I mean, I think this is the hardest part too, right? We might not actually go out and break down windows and desecrate, buildings, but there can be a raging storm within us, right? We can think evil about other people around us. We could be real negative or critical. And I think that's when you just have to be truly honest and just surrender to God. And, pray for your neighbor, pray for your enemies. I mean, that's the hardest, right? People that, might not like you and speak badly about you, and pray to have that kind of charity that is spoken about by the master healer. And this is powerful stuff we're talking about, Deb.
Oh, it is. It's very powerful. And I hope all of our listeners will replay this several times, because if you can do this in your life, you will be a thunderbolt and a powerhouse of a person. So principle 6, nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice. The nonviolent resistor has deep faith that justice will eventually win. Nonviolence believes that God is a God of justice. Oh, how powerful that is. How powerful. What do you think, Juleen?
Well, isn't this the quest, right? How do we get deep faith? And my mama always said, Juleen, God rewards efforts. So we have to work to have deep faith. It just doesn't happen. You know, some people have it, some people don't. No, you work for it. I mean, just like, you know, if you want to have a strong marriage or a great relationship with your kids or your neighbors, I mean, you got to make Ron his favorite apple pie, or you got to take the kids to the mall, or, you know, babysit the grandkids when your grown
Yeah.
kids want to go on a date, or, you know, shovel the walks of your neighbors, or give them TP when they run out of it during COVID. It was so funny. I had a little 80-year-old neighbor during COVID ask me continually because toilet paper was hard to find in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And she just like thought it was the greatest thing when I would run over, you know, a couple packs of toilet paper and whatever. What I'm saying is, if you want to have a good relationship, and same, if you want to have that deep faith, you got to work for it with God. You got to be talking to him. You got to study his word. You got to worship with like-minded people. You got to serve his children, you know, and then you just let Jesus, you know, take the wheel, so to speak. Faith, I heard this the other day, faith isn't an absence of uncertainty, but rather faith embraces uncertainty. So when you have that kind of deep faith, and after you've done all that you can, then you just trust that God's will and his way will prevail, and he'll take care of a seemingly unjust situation. And that's what deep faith does. It gets you through those valleys when you just don't know. You just don't know how it's going to turn out.
Well, you know what I'm hearing from you, and I'm going to go back and kind of go over our reasons for this, but I'm hearing that the nonviolent protest makes you a better person. The violent protest takes you in the opposite direction. I think what these principles reveal is that most protesters today are not pointing out the wrongs and injustices of evil. Rather, they are looking for or craving a purpose. The lie in this is that they aren't fulfilling a purpose. Instead, they like being part of a group, and they crave attention, and they will do anything to feel as though their life matters. Yet the things they do will never amount to real change or give them the benefit of personal satisfaction, because we're turned off by it. The people watching it are turned off by it, and nothing changes. What do you think, Juleen?
Yeah, we see it. We see it all the time with people that are looking for love in all the wrong places. I had a close friend recently tell me about her son. He's in his 20s. He was, you know, a difficult teenager. He experimented with drugs. He would sneak out of the house. He had girlfriends. He had a band. He had long hair. And, you know, he came from a good family of faith, but this young boy, you know, just began to push back, and he didn't really want to identify with the teachings, his childhood teachings. And so he eventually moved out, and he came back and one weekend, and he told his parents how he had gone to a protest, kind of Black Lives Matters. So this couldn't have been so recently. Maybe it was a year ago. It feels like maybe she was just telling me it recently. And the dad was just like, couldn't take it. So dad just had to leave the room. He didn't want to hear about the son and his protest. But mom she said, I just began to ask him some questions, you know, and got him talking. And who knows, maybe she started making him a sandwich, and he felt safe. And at one point in the conversation, he actually said, Mom, I don't actually, you know, agree with everything that was said there, but I like these people. You know, I like them. I feel like I fit in and I'm accepted. And she said, you know, Juleen, my goal is have my house be a place that when the kids come home, they can talk through the experiences they're having. And I think that just leads into my tip, and then I'll turn it over to you, because I know we're winding up here. But I think my tip would be, let's just have, you know, our doors open. Let's have our hearts and our homes be a safe place for people that are trying to figure out life at the protests to land. And then when they do, like, lovingly speak truth to them. We got to turn our lights on so that they know that we're home and we're ready to receive them. And if our lights are on, they'll be drawn to us ultimately because they're seeking something. And as they land, as they come home, that is when we can begin to teach. And that teaching ultimately transforms them. So that's my tip for the day, Deb. How about yours?
Oh, Juleen, I would never cut you off because I love what you're saying. You could just go on and on. I don't care about the time. But I love what you're saying. Yes, every parent should do that. In fact, when I teach my parenting classes, I tell them, your job as a parent is not to have a slave in your house where they do everything you say to do, regardless, right when you say to do it. Your job is actually to be a mentor, which means you spend 18 years convincing them of what is right and wrong. And it's beautiful when they become adults and come home because then you just continue that mentoring, that convincing them that this is how you should go, but very gently when they're adults. So you tell that mama, I agree with her 100%. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great that she's doing that. Here we are again with so many lies to investigate and so little time left on our show. Oh my goodness. But my tip for the day is along the same lines, but a little bit different in that everyone should work very hard to understand yourself. Understand when your emotions are taking you in the wrong direction. Don't use a lie or a misunderstanding of who you are to bolster your self-esteem. Go for the good stuff. Go for the truth about yourself. Force yourself to study, to relate, to understand your world, and then quietly work to make yourself better, and that will make the world better. How about that?
Deb, amen.
Thank you for being with us today. Subscribe to this podcast and join us again. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing Debbie@debbiejansen.com. Thanks again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. And today, Juleen, thank you for all that you say and do on this program because it is wonderful. And I'm not only going to stick to the truth, I'm going to stick with you.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. The feelings are mutual. I'm so grateful that we can kind of hash it out, go back and forth, help remind us of some important truths, and hopefully do some good in the world today. Well, I'm Juleen Jackson along with Debbie. We hope that you will keep sticking to the truth. We will see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.